flame, but the stains in the game.
What's your name?
Consequence, I'm tight, burnt like flames.
And why's that?
American dream, they got this ghetto kid in the fiend.
Don't stress that, cause it's not in your bloodstream. Your whole being comes from greatness to remember. Chase Long got you caught in the storms of December. And brothers on the block packing nines like September. Change the situation, get the pockets all slender.
I'm Sasha Nicole. And this is American Therapy, the definitive podcast for all things black mental health. Dr. T, you gotta say the intro too. We can't hear you. Speak up. You can't hear me? There we go.
Okay.
So, I'm Sasha Nicole.
And I'm Star.
And I'm Dr. T.
Hey!
Oh, we got it right. Okay. If Rodney gets some noise in my earphone, I love it. I'm turning. I don't have
Well,
no...
we can hear you, honey.
Okay, well, I'm just going to sit here with no noise.
So, American Therapy, as we mentioned, a definitive podcast for all things black mental health. And we are here another day. I was going to say we're back in the studio after a long Christmas break, which we did have, but we had one prior. And I mean, it was interesting to say the least in this journey. So that's all good. So if you don't know, please follow us, American Therapy, on Instagram. We're on all channels in regards to listening. We also have a YouTube channel where you can watch us on video. Follow, subscribe, all that. On top of the HBCU Mental Health Tour, we actually have some confirmed dates, y'all, that we're going to be posting on our social media. Yes.
Somebody's letting us come to their school.
Exactly. We finally, I know,
Shout
right?
out to TSU. That check just cleared. Thank you. Shout out. Thank you. Y'all showed love.
Exactly. We're going to be stopping at Delaware first, but please pay attention. We'll be posting that. We're so excited. So what are we talking about today?
Okay, so today we have Life After 50. Now what? I had to throw that little extra on the end.
Oh, my God.
So we have a really interesting show because, I mean, we kind of stuck to, like, we talked about everything, sex and everything else. But we haven't talked about life after 50.
We
and
haven't. And we have a variety of
life
audience.
don't end. It's not over, right?
Absolutely.
No way.
Right, Dr. Royce?
No.
Right.
And you happily just crossed that threshold, and I'm here to tell you.
And we had to do this one. We had to do this one for Dr. Royster, but not only, we had to do it for our other listeners who are, older than 40, 45, 50, which is awesome. We love that we are crossing all types of genres. So without further ado, I don't know if I said that right. I don't know. So for starters, we have Miss Mary Thomas Newsom, also known as Miss Patsy. And she's worked as a consultant for over 15 years and 5 years as a chief of staff in the Maryland Senate office of the Senate Majority Leader and Senate President Pro Tem, with a Master's of Education degree in postgraduate studies and certification in both counseling and administration. She brings a wealth of expertise to her work. Having trained at Maryland Academy of Dramatic Art, she is quite comfortable with audiences of any size. In addition to speaking locally, nationally, and internationally, Mary has penned 2 educational publications. She's also written a book review for the Journal of Educations for Students Placed at Risk, produced by Johns Hopkins University, and her article entitled Roots and Wings on Cultural Diversity was published by the Montgomery Times. I like that title, Roots and Wings. Damn, can I borrow that for a book? I'm serious. Mary has appeared on both radio and television to share her expertise on a variety of topics. And she has a variety of expertise like a Generation X meets Generation Y, mentoring, effective communication, and diversity in the workplace. We also have Miss Mina DeChazo, and who is also a huge powerhouse within the management and HR system. She's an accomplished human resource executive with extensive hands-on experience in all HR functional areas to include HR strategy, re-engineering and design, talent acquisition and management, staff engagement, compliance, process improvement. She served as the VP of Human Resources for Children's National Health System here in D.C. She was the VP for Human Resources for Innovage in Denver, Colorado. Also the Senior VP for Wolf Organization in York, Pennsylvania, and on and on and on.
She done fired a lot of people.
Oh, no, right?
That's what I'm like, HR.
Right, and probably have done it so gracefully.
Today is going to be your last day.
Right.
She like, yeah.
She is the law. So without further ado again, let's get it popping. So we wanted to do this topic again, as mentioned, because of the genre of audiences that we've been very blessed and fortunate to cross, and we felt like we wanted to reach out to our older audience members and even give back to the younger audience members, where there is something to be said about wisdom, right?
Yes.
And right now we are sitting at a table full of wisdom, and I'm excited to soak it in. So we want to, we want to start with you both on just more than your accomplishments professionally, but just a little bit of your story personally and what that looks like. Who wants to go first?
Well, let's talk a little
And
bit
talk
about,
up on the mic.
Let's talk a little bit about the story. When you get to be 50, the story can be quite long.
When I was 8.
Shorten it.
You want the short version of that long story.
Right.
Well, I will have to say that as we think about being older, sometimes we think about all of the negative things that have happened to us. But from that comes that wisdom that you talked about. We all bring that wisdom, and it is a result of the dynamics in our life. I am a person who has lost a son, my only child. 18 months later, I lost a husband. Ended up, as when they say an empty nest, I live in a home alone as an empty nest, and was fortunate to be joined by my niece. But that being said, my perspective on that is I'm still alive. And while I may have lost my son and my husband, I'm still in the land of the living, and so I do what living people do. You'll hear some of that tonight. We'll talk about the fun things that we get to do over 50.
And just to piggyback a little bit on what Mary just said, I have my children. Actually, I have 3 adult children and grandchildren. But, being here and being able to talk about being 50 and older is a miracle for me. I'm 12 years out, cancer-free.
Wow.
And I'm also someone who deals with sickle cell anemia. And so to just be able to sit here and talk about life, I celebrate life every day. It's wonderful to be alive. And so when we talk about life after 50, it's the same thing as life after 20. And I also heard you said saying something, Star, about, we've had a topic on this, we had a topic on that, we had a topic on sex. Well, look, you still talk about sex after 50 too. So just want you to know that.
Yeah, just because there's snow on the mountain doesn't mean there's not fire in the fireplace.
And I got a word for that, because as you see, I don't have any snow on my mountain. As long as they make Lady Clairol,
Now hold
gonna
on
see
now, because I am 40 and I have just gotten like my first few grays down there. So I don't think you can put Clairol everywhere. I'm just saying.
well, she said on the mountain.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She didn't say
It's a mine in the gutter. Oh,
That's
Yeah,
valid,
right. That's the valley, baby.
Shout out to PG County Public Schools. Nothing on geography or land text.
No, I absolutely love what these ladies have said, because I think a lot of times people fear getting older. And I always say, like, the alternative is not pretty. If you're not getting older, then you're not
You're
alive
dead.
and you're dead. And so I'm going to keep getting older as long as I can. And so I think a lot of times people fear it. They think that they're going to lose something. But again, I just crossed that 50 barrier 2 years ago, and I'm like dancing and excited and just like, this is the best time of my life. So I'm wonderful looking at these 2 role models next to me and saying it just keeps getting better and better and better.
But so I turned 40, right? And I felt like I was so depressed. This house was like, we gotta do a birthday party. I was like, no. And like literally, because it's like, okay, you've been racing towards 40, or like I'm gonna do this before 40. Everything's like under 40, the top this, under this age. And like, so how do we, for those of us that are younger, and like now I love it, because now it's like something switched in my brain. I was like, oh, I'm free. But at first it was like really depressing, because I felt like I hadn't reached certain milestones by a certain age. Like for us younger women that are dealing with like trying to get somewhere by a certain timeline, how do you get rid of that? Like, when does that dissipate? And because it's very detrimental. Like now that my mind is like not tuned to that, I'm like so much more productive. I'm so much happier. I'm not like, oh, I don't have this by this timeline. Help us, please.
Well, I think being goal-oriented is a healthy thing. I have 2 goals for myself: to be healthy and happy. So I keep the goals pretty broad, but also use those as yardsticks for measuring when I'm involved in something or thinking about getting involved in something. How does it fit in with those 2 goals that I have? But I don't put pressure on myself, and that would be the thing that I would caution people about. Don't pressure yourself to try to force something.
Yeah.
Go with the flow, be a little easy about it, but do the things that are necessary to get where you want to be. Be determined in your pursuit and have some structure in how you're going to get there. But pressure is not one of those things. And I want to think about life as a party, although I have to go back to what you said about being depressed about it. We're allowed to party, but we're not allowed to have a pity party. Those parties are not allowed. So if you find yourself feeling like you're getting down on yourself, start with the top, which is how you think and how you talk to yourself, because the most important thing is the message that you send to you. So if you want to have a goal, I encourage that. But if you want to beat up on yourself for not getting there, rather than focus on all the things you've accomplished as you were on the journey, I think that's where the healthy approach would come in.
And I agree with everything that Mary said. And along with that goal, you just make sure that you have that plan and you have those actions and you're working that plan as you go along. But success is different for different people. And so, in your mind, you may not think I'm where I want to be. But the thing about that is being grounded in the now. Mary and I was just talking about earlier about this book. Is it Living in the Now?
Yes.
Living in the Now. And when you do that, when you get grounded into where you currently are, you won't be thinking about that and getting depressed about where you're not, because what you want to do is find that happiness and find that joy in where you currently are, and that will take you forward and propel you forward in life.
That's a word.
Yeah,
That's a word
I think that when we're younger, we're so focused on where we want to be, we forget about the journey, which is exactly what these ladies have just described. And as we get older, we appreciate the journey. We appreciate stopping, looking out the window, enjoying, and we feel grateful for it. And I think when we're younger, we forget to be grateful for a lot of things. And so when we're older, we're grateful for every day. We're grateful for another month, another year, another opportunity. It's like you start to see the world because there's more life behind you than in front of you. So every day is just a beautiful opportunity and a beautiful promise. And so I think your gratitude grows. And if we could get young people to think more in terms of living in gratitude and enjoying the journey, I think we could change the world.
I think if you think about first thing in the morning, that breathing is life. And if when you first wake up in the morning, you take a few deep breaths, and during that time that you're doing the deep breathing to give yourself new life, you think about those things for which you can be grateful or should be or are grateful. And I think that could get your day off to that positive start with that feeling of gratefulness, but also breathing that new life into you.
And in addition to that, just having positive affirmations that you say. And I say these things out loud. I don't just think them, but I say them out loud to myself because I hear them, and then they get grounded more into my thought. And in addition to the positive affirmations that I say to myself, I meditate. because all meditation is prayer. And I believe that once you get grounded in that in a very positive way, you know, you just put aside and press down those negative thoughts. They don't come. I don't allow them because the one thing that we can control is our mind and what we think about. And I think that this psychologist here psychiatrist here beside me can tell you that. I mean, I think you've got to maybe have some type of mental issue if you can't control your thought. But if you're normal,
Well, damn.
healthy. Oh, did I just diagnose you? I just diagnosed you. Well, but if if you're normal and you're healthy, you can control your thought. And I even tell myself if a negative thought, because negative thoughts
They
will
come.
I said,
You gotta
look,
control it.
I'm not even thinking about you.
Right.
I said, I refuse to. And then I replace it with a positive thought.
Absolutely. You know, one of my favorite mantras is if you find gratitude, you'll find peace. And so in so many situations, I'll be like, let me find the gratitude. Find the gratitude. Because it helps. It
We
really
had this conversation 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, find the gratitude. Find the gratitude.
You want to
right?
tell your story about 2 weeks ago?
Which one? I mean, I have so many like every week. Which story?
You were telling me about we had the conversation about gratitude, and then the very next week you were like, "Yo,
Well, which you got to remind me stuff.
Hampton."
Hampton. Oh, us going to Hampton. You know, so quickly, you know, one of our tour stops is Hampton University. And we were in talks with them, and they had mentioned this big time celebrity. And I was like, oh, wow, this would be a great opportunity for the show. And then later on, they were like, yeah, you know, we couldn't get them in our budget, but instead we got this, you know, motivational speaker who, you know, never had heard of or anything like that. And so I'm like, who? I mean, I'm talking about like upper echelon type of celebrity they were talking about. And then all of a sudden it was like a person like naming my name, like, who was that? And so,
Who is the dynamic speaker, by the way? I looked him up.
oh, his name is Fletcher. Oh, we should
looked
be
him up.
name drop because he, you know, will be part of our tour stop, Fletcher Keeves.
He's dynamic.
And he is a dynamic speaker. He's an amazing speaker, person. Shout out to Omega Psi Phi. He's also a member of Omega Psi Phi. He is a, I don't know if the right word is paraplegic, but he is bound to a wheelchair from an accident that he had. And he has really turned his journey from going from being a regular walking person to now having hardly any movement in a wheelchair, and has really made it a point to live his life with no bounds despite his circumstance. And so, you know, and I told Star, I was like, well, you know, I hope you're not disappointed, but we're not going to have, you know, this big time celebrity. And she, you know, she was just like, well, it's not the celebrity show, it's our show. Like, and I'm like,
We're the celebrities.
well, damn, like, you know, that's true. And so,
But we had just had the week before, we had the conversation about like our goals for like the year.
Right,
It was
right.
Like this year, we want to be more grateful.
Absolutely,
for
more
all the
grateful,
opportunities
finding the gratitude,
that
because
have
we
come.
haven't been doing this as long as you would have thought, the way that our synergy has been and opportunity has been, and we, I think, we have been getting some pretty decent opportunities and blessings through doing this and being consistent and doing the legwork, and I think for a moment for the both of us, we were just like, but we're not getting enough opportunity. We're not getting noticed, like, because you know it is time consuming, a lot of work, and so gratitude, you can miss out on a lot of things that's happening in your life because you're just not grateful for the things that are happening. And I think oftentimes, all of us have to do a better job of reminding us, like, what are all the great things that are happening, because you're so focused on that one thing that maybe you really wanted or that you didn't have. And so so that's my favorite thing. Find gratitude, you'll find peace. So that's a big one.
I would add to that too, smiling. When you smile, you change how you feel and you change how people around you feel. So you are actually influencing the environment. People say to me all the time, you smile a lot. Yes, I do. I am happy inside. That's number one. I'm not just forcing myself
I am
to
happy
smile.
inside.
I am a happy person. So yes, because they ask me, why do you smile so much? I am happy. And so when you're happy, you radiate that happiness. So people have a tendency to want to be around you, and they're curious about what makes you smile, what makes you so. And then they start citing all the bad things that have happened. True, that did happen. I'm human. You know, I could say, why me? I could say, why not me? Whatever. It happened. I'm here. But I choose happiness. That's a choice.
Yes.
And it's, again, about your mindset.
Yeah.
And so we all have that same opportunity every day.
But we're mentally ill though, so
It's a spectrum.
And so this is a great segue in when we talk about each of your stories that you briefly touched on. Let's dig deeper into how you have made the choice to overcome not only physically in the things that you've expressed, but then also emotionally and mentally. You mentioned how you lost your son, your only child, and then you lost your husband. Can you share a little bit of those details, when especially you look even media wise, like you think of a lot of the people that have just been lost. I mean, Lauren London, who lost Nipsey Hussle,
Kobe and his daughter and all those people.
Kobe Bryant, and
there's
the
a
daughter-
guy. My niece was telling me, some young rapper. I've never heard
Yeah,
of him.
Pop
He died
Smoke.
yesterday.
Pop Smoke
told
just
me about
passed
that.
away. He was
Right,
20
right.
years old,
Yeah.
and
20.
he was 20. And from the looks of it, it seems as though it was actually a targeted hit. And so when you think of these, because we have so many young people who are now experiencing loss and do not know how to cope with loss. And so, what can you
Shoot, I
share a
ain't
little
know
bit
how
of
to
that
cope with
story
it.
of like losing your only child, your husband, and coping with that, and just even that experience overall, and some of the things that you did to be at the place now where you can say I'm happy?
Well, I actually employed some of what we're talking about here today to, when I think about my son, I have some options. I could say, oh my gosh, I lost my son. My son is no longer here. Or I could say, thank you, God, for allowing me to have a son. I had a chance to be a mother. A lot of females do not get that opportunity. So I'm going to look at it on the other side. I'm not going to stay focused on what happened in the past. Some of the things that happened in the past were very nice. I got a chance to have a little boy. I got a chance to see him grow. I've got a chance to get him through school. We went through college. We did all the things that parents do with children. Not everyone gets that opportunity. So I chose to stay focused on what I did have, not on what I did not have. The other thing, when we look at my son's loss and my husband's loss in my life, loss and death are a part of life. We have to understand that none of us are going to stay here. This is a vacation. Enjoy yourself while you're here, but you will not stay forever. It is a date that you will keep whether you want to or not, but that final date is coming for all of us. So what my son and husband did was just went before me, before some of us. We are all going to go that route. So I didn't choose to mire myself in the loss.
Okay.
I tried to look at life in the full package, that we come here, we stay for a while, and then we leave. I understand from my personal belief that people are here for a purpose, and when that purpose is fulfilled, then they will go on to the next phase of existence, whatever your beliefs allow you to consider that to be. So for me, I'm looking at it from a positive perspective in a way that can allow me to function and to live the few days or months or years that I have remaining. So those are some of the thoughts that I've given myself to allow myself to function and to live with the tragic loss. The last thing I would say about that, in addition to the fact that my husband died, my husband actually tried to kill me on the day that he died. Now, that particular day, I got absolutely not one scratch on me from the attacks, which was the attack. Gasoline was tossed on me. He tried to light a match to set me on fire, and then he tried to stab me. I was able to escape all of that without a scratch. So to me,
Good God.
I am supposed to be here.
Absolutely.
And so I cannot let that be in vain. I must live to the fullest extent that which has been given to me.
Is it fair
So-
to ask when you have you're married to this man, I'm assuming for many years, and who he attempts to kill you? Do you still go through a grieving process after a situation like that?
I don't choose to relive that over and over again.
Okay.
Again, it's a choice.
Yeah.
Yes, I have memories. Yes, I have thoughts, but I don't choose to dwell there.
Yeah.
That is not my place of being. I choose to be
understand that.
somewhere else.
Absolutely.
When I lost my mother, like that's touched because like there was a point where I was what we call grieving, right? And I just realized like for like a year, like it went on for a year, and then most of my friends were like, "Oh, you should be grieving for a long time when you lose your mother." That's what everyone told me. Like when you lose your mother, like it changes you. All these things that people told me, and then I remember like I went to my therapist, and she kind of said the same thing. She was like, "Okay, you have to set a time limit when you're gonna choose not to be grieving." Because you could grieve forever. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, it was an expectation, though, that, like, I should be upset. And I remember when I stopped being, I wouldn't say upset, but I like, released it. Like, even some of my family members were like, oh, the next Christmas, like, Mom's not here. That. And I was just like, okay. Like, it was upsetting to some folks because, they're still, but yeah, ooh, that's powerful. Choice.
Dr. T, can you elaborate from a psychiatrist standpoint where
clinical
so my upbringing, my father who, is very cold, he raised me with the presumption that like death is death. It will happen when I die. Hopefully this is where I'm going to be buried, and this is what it is. And so when people have died around me, my grandmother, who was probably the closest thing, to me at one point, I really considered her like a mom to me. It was like, I felt sad, maybe, I cried at her funeral, but my sadness maybe existed for like a few days. And then it was just like, I don't want to say like, I haven't forgotten about my grandmother, not at all. Because every time I go past Fort Lincoln, I'm like, oh, grandma. And my grandfather, who actually died on this day 4 years ago, and Facebook reminded me of that. But I literally, like, I don't even think about, like, I think about them at certain moments, like, my grandfather used to give me the news. He never talked to me. He would give me the newspaper and circle an article he wanted me to read. And that was his
way of
form of
communicating,
communication. And so sometimes I'll see something like that and be like, ha, 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 or I'd take him to a restaurant and he would literally order every fucking thing on that menu. And like, that was like our relationship. And so is there something wrong though when that I don't process it in a way where like, oh, I'm sad. Whereas like my husband, whose mom died prior to we got married, every year when her birthday or when her death anniversary comes around, he goes through this grieving process.
Yeah.
Is each way normal?
Yes, each way is normal. And that's a great question because how you live is how you will grieve, right? So depending on your relationship.
Say that again. I got to do stars line. Say that again.
How you live is how you will grieve. So the relationship that you have, it will change, but it will persist. And so if you were the type of person, I have to call my mom every day. I have to, see her, I have to talk to her after, and it's like, it's a very, very present thing. When you grieve, it will be very, very present. But if you're the type of person that can sustain the intimacy of a close relationship without having to be right by their side, you'll be able to sustain that after death, and they will still be a part of your heart and a part of your spirit. And neither one is right or better than the other. It's just that the person who has the more, if you will, intense grieving process, they just have to learn a new way of living. Whereas it may be a little easier to transition through the grief process because you're already living in a different style that can sustain itself a little more easily. So absolutely. And so for some people, it's a brief period of time and then they kind of move on, but there is always a new normal. It's never the same, right? There's always a new normal. And I think that the grieving process is people who refuse to let go of what the old normal was. The moment you accept that I have to find a new normal, you begin healing and stop grieving.
Does that tie into like chronic illness as well? Like you got a new normal and you just got to find a new way to live, or?
I think that's an excellent way to put it because I had a double mastectomy. And so it wasn't as if I was losing a part of myself and I grieved that. It was like, thank God I can get rid of these breasts because they've been aching me for years. And they had, you know, and I don't know if they had hormones in the milk or whatever back in the day, but actually my breasts started growing when I was in the 2nd grade.
Wow.
And I don't know if that's, I mean, maybe that's typical for little young black girls.
Maybe.
But they ached. Yeah. And they ached a long time. And so when the doctor said, I've got sad news and blah, 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 you know, you have invasive cancer in your left breast and you have ductal in situ in the right breast. And he says, and so, you know, I'm recommending a double mastectomy. And I said, okay, all right, when we going to do it? And so the thing was, okay, I accepted that. I did not grieve the fact that I was losing my breast. I was glad to be getting this cancer out of me.
Wow.
So, yeah, you know, as it relates to, you know, losing a part of your body that women, you know, makes them feminine, it did not bother me because I got new ones that will never droop.
I was like, I don't know what breast they took out, but you got titties.
I swear to God, I was looking at him. I was trying to be subtle. I kept looking like,
like,
is
ma'am.
it padding? Because that looks good.
No, they ought to be envied, ladies. They will never drop.
They will never drop. They will never drop. So
That's a gift.
yeah. So you know, so there was
My young ass with her drooping breast.
so there was no grief
Yeah.
around that. As far as dealing with the sickle cell, I have sickle cell SC, which is not as severe as sickle cell SS. However, I do get crises from time to time, and I tell you, I mean, if you can imagine the worst pain ever emanating from the core of your body. But I'm still here. I'm alive. I lived through it. And so I just hang in there, bear with it, because I know I'm going to make it to the other side.
Yeah. I want to point out something that I think something that I point out to my patients, and I think these two ladies emulate this. There is a difference. And so we keep talking about how they're happy, but I would propose that they actually are living in a state of joy.
Okay, what's the difference?
Yeah, joy is very different. Joy is a state of being. Joy is where you have found your peace, and you can experience sadness and joy at the same time, but you cannot experience happiness and sadness at the same time. So it is possible to be in the dark and still see light. That's joy, right? And I feel like
I
these
feel like
ladies.
I'm about to cry. and I don't mean to be a Kanye right now. You know, I'm gonna let you finish.
I'm gonna let you finish.
Better than church on Sunday.
Super emotional because it's like, you know, we even doing this show, life, and we hope people who listen to this and hear this, when you're on a journey
Yeah.
of trying to find joy,
Yeah.
or and you think like I've been quasi living a life of decent happiness, but now I'm hitting a pivotal moment of joy,
Yeah.
and sometimes I question like, God, am I supposed to experience joy this young?
Yes.
Like, am I supposed to like hit this aha moment
Yes,
where
yes.
I'm like, I feel joy,
Yes.
and I feel good about it, and God damn it, I want everybody around me to like. So when you said it, I'm like, okay, go ahead, Dr. T, go ahead.
You ruined the moment. No, I'm just
She's like,
sorry.
Stole your joy.
I mean, I think that that's a perfect example, and that actually feeds into like you can experience joy at any age. There is a little girl, and you often see this in young children. They can experience joy through the worst of what we would call tragedies or pains, or you can see that. And then somehow as we get older, we lose our joy. And then I think as we age, we learn to reclaim our joy.
Yes.
And so I think this is something that these ladies are demonstrating for us, that what life looks like when you live in joy. You can have difficult things happen on a daily basis and you can still be joyous. And you can have sorrow and you can still be joyous. And so it's just beautiful.
how do we live for our audience members that are listening? You know, people always say they got the notepad out. Like, how do they work to get to that joy? Like, what are some things tactical steps that we can learn to incorporate in our daily life? We talked about meditation, affirmations, waking up and feeling our breath. Are there other things we can do on that journey to joy?
Well, for me, it's like, what do I say when I talk to myself? Because you always have a conversation going on in your head. Always have a conversation going on in your head. And
See,
so,
ain't nothing wrong with me.
No, it's when you have the conversation, you ask the question and you answer it too.
Maybe something's wrong with me.
so it's like, what do I say when I talk to myself? And so when I have that conversation in my head, I always try to have a positive conversation about where I am, about life, about my kids, about my friends, about, what I'm going to do. Life is hard. No question about it. And like I told you guys, I had 3 kids. Well, I basically raised those 3 quick kids by myself. But as you can see, reading my resume, I did okay. Even having, gone through a couple of marriages that just did not work.
A couple? How many is a couple?
2.
Okay.
You got one more in you. You too pretty. You got one more in you.
that did not work. And having the responsibility of raising my kids, I did fine. But I talked to myself, and I did not succumb to. That's right. To the grief or the sadness that was mentioned earlier, because I knew I had people that I had responsibility for and accountability for that looked up to me, and I had something in life I had to do, and so that. I think, trying to get back to what you asked me, just what do I say when I talk to myself? It's got to be positive. It's got to be good. And I've just got to keep that smile within myself and keep it moving.
That's right.
Life is hard. We
Putting
know
that one foot in front of the other. I think that's another key for life after 50. Don't stop. Don't give up.
Ooh.
Don't let obstacles get in your way. Obstacles are things that you are to go over, under, around, or through. But they are not things to stop you. And so, again, attitude will determine your altitude. Yes. Right. We have got to figure out the fact that we are in charge of us, and that's all. We're not in charge of anything else. Life will happen to you. Bad things happen to good people all the time.
All the time.
And we cannot stop that. What we can do is be in control of ourselves, and it starts with the head and how you talk to yourself, the messages you send to yourself, and from there, you can go forward with those goals that you set, but just keep it moving. I tell everybody, keep it moving.
And one other thing I'd like to add is that it's good to have good support and good friends, because that helps to propel you forward. As you can see, Mary here is a good friend of mine, and we spend so much time laughing. And when I have a issue or a problem, it's somebody that I can turn to and talk to and share that with, who feels it with me and then can give me perspective. And so, it's good to have good sisters around you that you can talk to and share. That's important.
As you've gotten older, the both of you, because the young generation now be like, the raps on no new friends, things like that. And it's like, as you've gotten older, have you embraced the fact of every new stage in life, I'm embracing new friends, or okay with making new friends or learning new people and things like that?
Yes, the most important thing about those friends, though, is they should be positive people.
That's right.
You should surround yourself with people who can uplift you, who can hold you up, who can see those positive things about you, and not surround yourself with people that pull you down. I know that sometimes it's difficult to distance yourself from negativity. It could be a family member, it could be a coworker, it could be a neighbor, it could be someone you go to church with. Whatever it is, just because those people are negative and they are in your life does not mean that they have to dictate your life. You should purposely choose people who are positive, and that comes second after keeping yourself as a positive person.
And you have to continue to make connections. You know, my best friend I lost years ago from breast cancer. And I shared with Mary, I said, I wonder if I'm going to ever have another good friend. And then I met another good friend. And then I've got other good friends. But it was about me reaching out and making the connections, you know, with those people, not sitting back, standing, thinking that they're going to come to me.
That's powerful.
Yeah, but choosing wisely in terms of who I let into my space or sanctuary.
Yes.
You know, you don't want to let everybody in. You've got to protect that space because, as Mary said, everybody isn't positive.
Right.
And if you detect negativity, you know, you got to back away from that.
Are there any other character traits that you would say when you're evaluating relationships in your life, friendships, whatever that case may be, you know, besides being positive that you know, where you recognize that, hey, I need to let this friendship go or this relationship go?
Well, I would say two things I would look for. One is a person who is a communicator, an effective communicator. It's hard to have a relationship of any type with a person with whom you cannot communicate. And so you can work as a communicator yourself, because you should examine yourself first and how you communicate with the person. But you should also look for someone who is a good communicator. And the second thing is you have to have trust. As Mina just said, you can't let everybody into your space. It's the trust factor that determines whether or not you are allowing someone else to come into that space. So whether they, as you observe them, and that's another issue. When I meet someone or when I'm in a new situation, observation is number one. You know, don't go jumping in.
You're
Not
my
yet.
best friend.
Not yet. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yes, exactly. So I would say those two things: communication and trust.
Okay.
And I also add that I tell my young niece this, and I think this is true regardless of what age. You should surround yourself with people who are striving in the same direction as you. So if you're always having to reach back and help somebody, that means you're not looking forward. And so you need to surround yourself with people that have goals or a vision or a plan that is moving in the same direction that you are. If they're stuck in a place that you used to be, that means you're always turning around and going backwards to be with them. And that's not going to help you move forward.
Oh, good
Right,
point.
right.
And that ties into ego too. Like, you know, sometimes we like to be in a situation where we're like in the front, you know, and you gotta like check your own ego and be like,
Right.
hold
Well, because
up.
who's pulling you forward?
Is it hard to make? I mean, like we talk about characteristics and observing. Is it just like harder though to make friends or socialize when you're like over the 50 mark, over the 60 mark?
No.
Oh no! Like where do you go? Okay, seriously, where do you go to like meet friends, meet guys, like or girls? I don't know.
Let the ladies answer, but I'm also gonna say I think that if you had trouble making friends when you were younger, you're gonna have trouble making friends when you're older. So like my mom, who is obviously, if I'm 52, she's older than that, right? And so my mom, every time I talk to her, she's like, "Oh, I'm so and so with my friend." I'm like, "Where are you meeting these people? Where are you getting all? You live in a small town. You have a small town where she goes to the nursing home to visit, and then she sees the same people, and they start talking, and next thing you know, they're having lunch, and then and I'm just like, I don't do that. I'm much more reserved. I'm much more.
I'm everybody's best friend.
So I think if you struggled to make friends when you were younger, it's going to be a challenge for you to overcome as you get older.
But not impossible.
But not impossible.
Yes, it's not, because I met Mina in a class. I was interested in dancing, and so I used to dance when I was a teenager and wanted to get back into that because it was a passion then. And so in a dance class, Mina was there, and immediately I noticed some characteristics about her that I liked, and vice versa. So we ended up actually waiting quite a long time before she retired, and because she kept thinking that retirement meant boredom, and I had to constantly reassure her that Oh no, not in my world. But classes are a place to meet.
How did
friends.
you just walk up to her and be like, "Hey, you want to be my friend?" Like, no, because like a lot of like I could see, like I have some aunts that I could totally see, like, because when my mom passed away, like literally they were all, especially if you come from a big family, your family is your friends. Your sisters are your friends. Then they die, and it's like, oh shit, now I gotta go make some friends. Like literally, like one of my aunts was like, I have to make friends now.
Like that's a job.
Yeah, now I feel like I should be grateful I ain't got no damn family like that. I'm forced to make friends.
Let me tell you about family. I had some distant cousins, and we only saw each other at funerals and weddings, those kinds of things. So I kept saying to them, "Oh, we have to get together," and they said to me, "Oh, we're gonna have to get together."
Yeah.
But years passed, we never got together. So I decided that I was going to organize a group opportunity for us. So I told them I was going to have a potluck at my house, and I invited them all to come to bring a dish. And of course, that sparked a lot of conversation about the food. It's always a good topic, and it's easy. Women cook all the time. So we all brought a dish, and we started. And then after that, I started something called Ladies' Day Out, because they kept saying, "Oh, we had so much fun, and it was so easy, and we have to do this again." And so I became the leader of the Ladies' Day Out, and so every month or two, I now sponsor some kind of event for us to participate in, whether it's we go to St. Michael's and take a boat ride and have crabs on the deck and walk in the
That's
shops.
some sophisticated shit.
Have some wine.
We didn't have the wine, but we also will go for a walk, or we will meet at a restaurant. We'll go to and this was surprising. One day I was in Annapolis getting my hair done, and I said to a cousin on the phone, I said, "I'm in Annapolis. I know you live near here." I said, "I'm going to have lunch in about 2 hours at the Cheesecake Factory with a girlfriend. If you'd like to come, come on over." 11 people showed up.
No.
Yes, we ended up with 11 people just because I got on the phone and said to people, "Well, I'm going to be having lunch at the Cheesecake Factory." It was like in the dead of winter. We hadn't seen each other. Nobody's going anywhere. And everybody said, "It's good to get out of the house." I haven't seen anybody. We've been snowed in. It's cold. So one person taking the initiative to make a phone call or to say, "Come by and bring a dish," can be a way of making friends or of staying connected to friends. And I just happen to be one of those people who I have a lot of connections. And so I try to think of various ways to bring people together. So in meeting Mita started inviting some of her friends, and now our ladies group has grown so big. I have to say to them, I have 12 tickets. First come, first serve.
Oh, wow.
Right. Because
Y'all
we
out
would have
here.
20 people to show up to do something fun. So people are hungry for things to do.
Yep.
You be the one.
Do you ever get tired of sometimes being the initiator?
When I do, I talk to Mina, and then she hosts something in her house.
And then we pass it on to the next person, because there have been others who have hosted. This brings to mind a game day that I had at my house, and my son was the MC for us. And we won. We had prizes that we were giving away to the winners of the game, and we just had a lot of different women there, and they enjoyed it. And it doesn't take a lot, to make those connections and to have fun like that. And then thing that Mary and I do from time to time, Mary more so than me, but we'll go out, believe it or not, they've got dance halls where you can go and dance for people 50 and over, and you don't have to worry about getting shot or stabbed.
And the music we can relate to.
Yeah. So, so we go out, we dance, we have a good time.
I want to know where these
Dr. Rush is like, I'm wearing
We always talk about the fact that we feel safe there. They've got a security guard. They've got guys that are our age coming in. So it's a really fun time, and it's a nice way of meeting new people. So we have met lots of new people.
Well,
there.
I like older men too.
might be older than
I will be there.
There are some sugar daddies there, honey, that will be glad to see you.
And listen, am a willing sugar baby.
I'm good. I'm
Willing
good.
sugar baby.
I got a 70-year-old dad that's like
Willing
having
sugar
a whole
baby.
new life crisis. Like,
Well, bring Dad out to dance.
oh no.
Look, he can meet the 50s and 60-year-old ladies, and
So
he'll
look-
feel like he's in
And
seventh
Star's
heaven.
dad is very attractive. If we wasn't such good friends, I would be her stepmama.
Dina says that actually, because her and my dad know each other. So she's like, "Oh, I might marry your father." That's Regina, who's nuts. Who I love, but nuts.
Well,
So-
you bring your dad out to me.
Is he single?
Yes,
And
he's
he
very
looks
single.
good.
Oh, okay.
He's a mess. So look, so my dad and I, because we're now in this weird, situation of now we're becoming friends, right?
Yeah.
So he's older. My mom's passed. She passed 4 years ago, and so now it's like, okay, we're friends, we hang out, but sometimes our social scene like crosses each other, and it gets weird and like murky. So
You figure you went to
No.
a Snoop Dogg concert
I
with
did
your
take
daddy.
my dad to, because he likes Snoop
Snoop,
Dogg.
and was it Wu-Tang?
Wu-Tang. He
That-
likes Snoop. He
Yo.
loves Snoop Dogg.
That's because people have preconceived
Yeah.
notions
And my
about
dad
what
smokes
it's
a lot of weed, so that's the other thing. He loves Snoop Dogg because of, I don't think he knew any of the lyrics or anything, but he was like,
He was like, let's get high.
but like literally this week actually this happened. So there's a lady in a group I'm joining, an organization I'm joining, and she's in my group that we're joining together, whatever. And so, but she's like, much older than I am. She's my dad's age, close to his age. And so we're at this meeting yesterday, and he's like, "Who is that? What's her name?" All this. I was like,
Put
"Yo."
me on.
I was
Put me
like,
on.
"You gotta chill." Like, and so now we're like, and my dad has sex. Like,
well, of
Great
course.
transition,
Oh,
because
who
you know
said
I'm the
that it
nasty
was-
one.
At what age
Condom.
does it stop?
It
you know,
doesn't stop.
No, it doesn't stop.
It
So
doesn't
talk to
stop.
us about that. Like, we often as young people think of like, there's so many young people around us who are like, oh, I'm getting older. Oh, I gotta get it all out because I'm not gonna be able. So like, do you as older women, do you still get horny? Do you still
Yes.
have the same
I
like?
saw them condoms in my dad's bag. I almost fainted. I was like, no.
But like honestly, like, is there any part of the sensation that changes?
Dr. Rush is like,
Well,
No. One word answer. No. If you're in good health,
Right.
yeah.
no.
And
So-
even if you're in bad health, I mean, so you might. So for the females, as estrogen decreases, they might have a little dryness. But
Right.
there's tons of things you can use.
Yes.
And if the guy or
Drop
girl
them
that
Dr.
you're with,
Mills.
Squirt it up in there.
you can work with it and you can work around it.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Look, they even have the kind that's almost like a pop rock candy.
What is that? What is this? Is a wet thing? It pops. I want to try it.
It makes you feel like you're popping before he even gets there. He's like an added attraction. Get the party started.
Is it the same as when you're younger?
And the thing I'd like to say too
Okay.
is, as you age and you get older, you have fewer inhibitions.
Yes.
Yes,
That's
So,
very true.
Yeah,
That's
and so
true.
you can really get into it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about like your body image? Like, as your skin changes, things like that. Do you feel less like, I don't give a damn? Like, does any of that ever matter?
It doesn't really, and when I say that, I'm not saying that, when you disrobe in front of a person for the first time, everybody has a certain amount of inhibition about that. That's a normal thing that happens if you're 20 or if you're 50.
Right.
So it's going to happen. However, if you're with someone you really like and they like you, you really quickly get past that set of inhibitions and you move on. With the fact that you're both imperfect, okay?
Yeah.
Because let's be for real. I mean, I've been with guys who are like 15 years younger than me.
What?
Their bodies are no better than mine, really. They got stuff going on too, and whether he's older or younger,
That's right.
nobody's got a perfect
That's right.
body. I
That's
mean,
right.
I hate to burst
Do you
your
have to
bubble,
wait
but
90 days?
No, but I've been with an older man.
Oh, you into that Steve Harvey?
Hey,
We
listen.
don't have 90 days.
Same day rule applies.
Like, what's too, like,
young adults, as you always are. And I think as you get older, you have a better sense of seeing and knowing and connecting. And
Right.
so if you feel like you're connecting with someone and you guys are in agreement, it doesn't matter whether it's been 90 minutes or 90 days. That's up to the two of you.
But let me add to that.
You still need protection.
Not only that, I need a health report from your doctor.
That's exactly
That's
right.
my number one
Okay.
requirement. You will not touch anything over here with anything over there until you bring me a piece of paper saying you're clean.
Okay.
Okay, once I get the paper, we good to go.
Because older people, as you get older, you don't like to use condoms. Like, it just,
Well, now I read the study said that older people are the fastest growing population.
Yes.
HIV,
Yes.
And
yes.
that's
So
why
you
you require that piece
Piece
of
of
paper.
paper. There you go.
Oh.
Yes.
Piece of paper conversation. I mean, and hopefully if you're mature enough to have sex, this is regardless of
I'm
what
not
age
mature
you are.
enough to be having sex. apparently.
clearly. Because I'm all like, where the sugar daddy at?
I'm going to say this, Dr. T. I ain't going on no conversation because a man will say anything to get it.
No matter how old,
No
huh?
matter how old
Okay.
he is,
That
they
might
still
have
telling
something
the
to do
same
with the 90
stories.
minutes or the 90
Nice.
days.
Right.
And you know what? After being with an older man before, I honestly, like, in my head was like, his penis is going to be droopy.
Yeah, is it droopy?
No.
Yeah.
He fooled you, didn't he?
It was a lie. They lied to us.
Can they keep it up though?
Yeah, he
Girl,
can.
they got everything out here possible to keep that thing up now. Look,
only that, I think
before they
that-
thought to lubricate us, they were keeping that up.
I also think that older men, and this is from personal experience, that older men, because they appreciate you as a person, they want to work a whole heck of a lot harder to make sure you're happy.
Yes.
And they
Yes.
also have learned that the largest sex organ is between your ears. So
Yes.
they are working themselves and you at the
Yes.
same time
Yeah.
to prolong that thing as long as humanly possible.
Yes.
They working
So-
that brain, baby.
That's right. There you go.
Oh, man, we feel like we could talk to you all forever, but
we
we
didn't
do
do
have
sugar daddies. You just gave a ringing endorsement for sugar daddies.
Oh, yeah. We got to get some sugar daddies on the show. Let's do a sugar daddy show.
Hey, that's a
I hope
good
we can get him in
idea.
studio because
I was
you
gonna
know
say,
I'm gonna be like,
We
And,
can go to
and
a dance
Star,
site.
your dad can be one of them.
Oh no.
Look, and we
no.
want to be
Oh,
present
no.
when y'all bring the sugar daddies in.
listen, we can't all be competing.
Look over the clock.
We feel like we could talk to you all for. We want to thank you for coming on the show. We've had a great, insightful conversation, great laughter. Star, you know how you do it. What's your takeaways?
I have two things. No, first of all, I love the conversation about joy and living in joy through whatever challenges, because like that is a powerful affirmation of like so many things, and just you can be happy, you can be joyful through anything.
anything.
And then I'm gonna say the second thing is the mindset and the choice and having control over your mind. If you are healthy and well, not mentally ill, but having the choice to think a new thought, to think of a way that empowers you versus disempowers you. So the two things for me are joy and choice of what you want to think. And y'all are awesome. I want y'all to come back. Y'all gotta come back.
Thank you very much.
you.
We
Dr. T.
appreciate you inviting us.
And it's
Yeah,
been a
absolutely.
joy.
Dr.
Well,
T,
yeah.
what's your takeaway?
If you're following me, you know that the theme that I'm talking about this year is reclaim, reframe, and renew. And I think that we talked a lot about how you can reclaim things that you may have lost or may not have gained in your earlier years, in your latter years, and then your latter years can be your best years. So really focusing on reclaiming so that you can renew those years that you have left is, I think, my reminder and takeaway.
I think for me, the joy was a huge piece. You know, I felt super emotional, but I think overall, it's just, I think oftentimes we as people have so many misconceptions of what life is supposed to be, what that looks like. Once we reach a certain age, what it should be, and we start to evaluate ourselves and even think negatively. And as Ms. Patsy said, that you have to choose on how you're talking to yourself and where you are. And like you said, Star, I remember when you hit 40 and you're like, I just feel like, and I think that's because as we're trained to kind of feel as though these moments represent different pivotal times of our life on where we should be. And I think having this conversation is groundbreaking to, one, reiterate that we don't have to be anywhere that we don't want to be, and wherever we think that we not are, we're fine with where we are and choosing in that moment. And I'm so grateful to have you all, the energy, the wisdom, and thank you.
They want to leave.
Thank you so much.
Leave us with anything? Our audience, do y'all have a show coming or anything y'all want to leave us with? Y'all need a podcast.
It's funny because we had talked about it. And
That's actually how we got here.
Okay,
Because
all right
we
now.
were thinking of having a podcast to talk about life over 50.
Y'all need a
And
show.
we heard through my niece that Miss Sasha here did a podcast, and we wanted to pick her brain about doing a podcast, and that's how we got invited to come on the show. So we're still thinking about it. You guys are certainly inspirations for us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And so with that said, we are out.